Hello, bonjour. Welcome to the Union Safety Net, le filet de sécurité syndicale, a union podcast for working people. I'm your host, Sébastien Bezeau, et oui, parfois en français aussi. This podcast is hosted by the Union of Safety and Justice Employees, le syndicat des employés de la sécurité et de la justice. Join us for an informative discussion every month about issues currently affecting working people. On today's episode, we're joined by a dynamic trio to discuss recent developments around bargaining with the Federal Treasury Board. I'd like to welcome Sharon DeSousa, National President of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, Julie Nelson, bargaining team member for the PA table, and Rachel Besharah, negotiator with the PSAC. We're in uncharted territory. The Federal Public Sector Labor Relations and Employment Board has agreed with PSAC's request to bypass the Public Interest Commission process for the PA bargaining group. PSAC requested that the board bypass the lengthy PIC process after declaring an impasse in negotiations in February. Following 5 days of mediation in May, the board determined that a PIC would be unlikely to help the parties reach a deal. A major sticking point in negotiations remains Treasury Board's insulting wage offer of less than 1% per year, which fails to keep pace with the rising cost of living, and it actually amounts to a pay cut for federal public service workers. Let that sink in. Additionally, Treasury Board has shown no willingness to act on key priorities for members, including remote work, job security, and stronger protections in the workplace, particularly around the use of artificial intelligence and surveillance. Sharon, Julie, and Rachel, let's talk about it.
I'm so excited to talk about this. It's a major win, not just for our union, but for other federal public sector unions that fall under this legislation.
Okay.
And it shows that at least there's somewhere in this world, there's common sense that the Public Interest Commission is a waste of our time and just costs taxpayers' money.
That's a good way to sum it up. Okay, you kind of stole the thunder there, Sharon. Thank you. Let's take a step back. Let's set the stage. Rachel, as the negotiator, can you quickly recap the bargaining process since the spring of 2025? What's happened since then?
I'll try to do it quickly. There's been a lot happening, although at the same time, not a lot of movement happening. But I'll actually go back to the winter because we served notice to bargain in February 2025, the earliest that we're legally allowed to serve notice, which is 4 months before that.
Right. And just for our listeners who probably don't know, it's not that PSAC wants to bargain late. This is all legislation, right? It's all written in law. PSAC has to serve notice to bargain per legislation. Just want to make that clear. Keep going.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So we were actually at the bargaining table before the contract even expired. And June 11th, just this past June 11th, marks 1 full year since we first met with the employer and exchanged our non-monetary proposals. We tabled our monetary proposals in December. Then over the past year, we've met with the employer like 10 times. And despite all of those meetings, not one single issue has been signed off on yet.
Wow.
Instead, we've been dealing with repeated delays, endless discussion that goes nowhere, excessive focus on things that, are not really that important, like editorial changes, and attempts by the employer to roll back the collective agreement through concessions. Then in February, the employer crossed a line. They violated the statutory freeze provision of the Federal Public Sector Labor Relations Act when it changed our members' working conditions through its return to office announcement. And at that point, the PA bargaining team, they said enough was enough, and they decided to file for impasse. As you said, we asked the board to bypass the PIC process, the Public Interest Commission, so we wouldn't lose any more time. The board appointed their own mediators. We met in April and May in an effort to break the deadlock. But that's when the employer tabled, as you said, their insulting wage offer, averaging less than 1% over 4 years. And yeah, exactly like you said, like a wage decrease. So no surprise, mediation did not resolve the issues. The good news is, the board has now approved bypassing the PIC process. So while this process has been painfully slow, your bargaining team has continued pushing forward every step of the way, and we're ready for what's next.
Okay, let's go back to Sharon. Now, you did frame this as a win that we're finally bypassing the PIC. I mean, in my history, and I'm not that old here, but it's the first time that the PIC has been, we're not going through that process, right? And in your recollection, is it the first time?
It is the first time. And I still remember when I was a young worker when we changed the legislation and we forced bargaining teams to go through the PIC. And it has served no purpose whatsoever. And to me, it just delays the inevitable. And it's costly. It's costly for the union. It's costly for the government, and more importantly, the taxpayers.
Now, did PSAC ever request to bypass the PIC in previous rounds of bargaining, or is it the first time that we're asking this? Do you know?
I think it's been asked twice before.
Okay, so you've already did that. Okay.
But one thing I can tell you is we have a campaign. We have a campaign to permanently remove the PIC from bargaining. And that's something that we've been working on for the last year. And right now, I know the government's looking at the Canada Labor Code, and I'm hoping that they'll look at the Federal Public Service Labor Relations Act as well, because you can't have one without the other. And I'm hoping that they choose to see the common sense and recognize it's just a waste of time.
Okay, so now we're saving time, we're saving taxpayer money. So is the bargaining process moving forward faster now? What does it mean next steps in terms of bargaining?
Well, I think it'll depend on political motivation. We know that our members at any bargaining team have full control as to their mandate. So that means they can withdraw demands, they can choose to bargain in good faith. They are the decision makers. But we also know the employer needs a political mandate, and that mandate gives them a pot of money that will allow them to maneuver. But also, they would need permission to take demands off the table. So for us, it all depends politically. Is this government motivated and ready to bargain?
Okay. Julie, you're a bargaining team member. You've been elected by your fellow coworkers in the public service realm to represent them. How does this make you feel that the PIC, we're bypassing that now and, we get to move forward with that? How does that implicate you in your role?
I'm happy to be moving forward. Quite frankly, the PIC process, in my opinion, is kind of a waste of everyone's time and money. Like, as a taxpayer, it annoys me that it exists. So the fact that we can move forward and hopefully get a good deal for our members. The goal is to get a good deal, and it gets us to the next step so that we can do that. That's what the bargaining team members are doing. We're here to fight for our members, and that's what keeps us going.
And I think it's also key that Sharon, as the national president of PSAC, states that, the bargaining team, they're the one making the decisions. They have the power. You're elected by the workers, and you have the power to make decisions on how you move forward as a team. Now that you're bypassing the PIC, how does this decision impact mobilization? How do you mobilize your troops on the ground?
I think this decision, it shows the importance of my mobilization. Now is the time for our members to come out and show the support. We've had days where we've all worn black in support of the bargaining team. Those types of events are even more important now because our strength at the table comes from outside the table. Like, the more that the employer sees our members behind us, supporting us, participating in mobilization actions, whether it's wearing black, whether it's using a virtual background, that having a sign at your desk of "I support my bargaining team," all those actions give us more and more power at the table that we can use to leverage and get the best deal possible for our members.
Okay. And what are you hearing, Julie, from the members on the ground? What are they saying now that the PIC process is going to be bypassed as per PSAC's request?
I think there's a lot of questions, that's why we're here today.
What kind of questions are you getting?
Lots of questions. Does this mean we're going to have a strike? What happens? The kind of questions that you get to when you get towards, the later parts of the bargaining process, because really that's where we're at now with having bypassed the PIC process. And I think that's something we need to make sure our members are prepared for.
And what do you tell them when they ask you that?
It's cliche and everyone says it, but like we always say the best way to avoid a strike is to prepare for a strike.
Right.
And as cliche as it is, it's so true because let's be real, at the end of the day, the employer doesn't want to lose our labor. And that's what a strike is. It's us withholding our labor to get advancements at the table. And so if the employer thinks there's a real chance that we're going to do that, it makes them think twice before choosing to just say no to us like they have been doing.
Am I hearing, are we going to be conducting strike votes?
Well, right now, what I can tell you is that we do have mediation coming up in September. We've got 2 sets of dates, September 21st and 22nd and 29th and 30th. So we will see how that goes. What I can tell you more than ever, this summer is about mobilization. It's making sure our members are ready to go, letting the employer know loud and clear that you need to come to the table and you need to bargain in good faith. And if not, we're going to take further action. So that's right now where we're at. At the end of the day, you can't bargain with yourself. And the only real tool in the toolbox is about withdrawing your labor. But I can tell you, no one wants to go on strike or take a strike vote. But a strike vote is a message that cannot be refused. It sends a clear announcement to the employer that I'm standing behind my bargaining team and I want a collective agreement that keeps pace with what's happening in the world.
Thank you for that clear answer, Sharon. I think it's important. And like Julie mentioned, I'm sure members will appreciate hearing that coming from your mouth as the national president of PSAC. And like Sharon said, the next mediations are scheduled in September. And like Julie mentioned, from now until September, boots to the ground, people. You have to mobilize and put some pressure if you want to see some action at the bargaining table. Okay, we've talked about the pick as much as we could. Now, unfortunately, let's talk about the wage offer. Seriously, in this day and age, we're all complaining we can't afford bread, we can't afford milk, we try to buy Canadian. And here are public sector workers who, help us day in and day out with public services that Canadians rely on. Their wage offer, less than 1% a year, almost.
Shame.
Julie, how does that make you feel that your employer is offering you less than an average of 1% increase per year?
It pisses me off. Quite frankly, I'm mad. I'm a young worker, so I think about how much workers are being left behind, especially those of us who are in our 20s and 30s who have so much career ahead of us and are trying to buy homes, start families, that next generation. It makes me so mad. But then I also think about too the workers who are trying to save up for their retirements and be ready for that next phase of life. It leaves our members behind and it pisses me off. I don't really have any other words. Quite frankly, I'm mad.
It doesn't really motivate you to show up to work every day, right? I certainly wouldn't want to go to work under that condition. Rachel, you've been a negotiator for quite some long time with PSAC. Have you recalled such wage offers in the past? Or is this one for the books?
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's one for the books.
I mean, it's incredible. It's awful. And, we expected the game to be played by Treasury Board, of course. But this was shocking. This was a new low by Treasury Board. Wages in the private sector have risen at strong pace. And in recent years, and, it's been important to keep up with inflation. Yes, of course, we have lower wage offers from employers all across Canada. But this is just beyond what we're seeing. And Treasury Board trying to characterize this as reasonable, it is not. It's completely out of touch and very far from the economic realities that our members are facing. I've heard stories, part of my job is to listen to the membership and hear their experiences, understand the stories behind what they're experiencing so we can, make those arguments at the table. Federal public employees are having to go to
Food banks.
Food banks, exactly. Like, this is shocking. And the level of how people are feeling, Julie talks about being pissed off. People are demoralized. Julie talked about, her generation of workers. I'm hearing people that have been in the federal public service for decades saying they have never experienced a climate like this. And I mean, I think we can know that it's by design as well, right? But yeah, as a negotiator, my perspective is that the problem is not actually just the amount, as insulting as it was. It's also the employer's attitude and their conduct within the bargaining process. For nearly a year, slowing down discussions, avoiding productive bargaining. This is not what serious and respectful bargaining looks like. And in any other sector, this kind of bargaining would be considered, at best, bad form, and at worst, bad faith bargaining, obstructing the process, which is, another reason why the PA team decided to file for impasse and why PSAC has filed an unfair labor practice complaint against Treasury Board. And all of this coupled with the pitiful wage counter, as I said, this is a new low. And I really like actually what one of our team members said is it feels like death by 1,000 cuts.
That's sad. Now, Sharon, was PSAC's wage proposal out of whack? Did you ask for like 10% that they came back with 1? Because usually, you that's how you bargain, right? You start big and then you try to go in the middle. What was PSAC's ask that they came back with such a lame offer?
Our wage proposal is very reasonable. What I can tell you, we know that you have your first pass. Theirs is going to be very, very low. But I can tell you, I did not expect under 1%. I know ours, like somewhere we will negotiate back and forth.
Right.
And then we will meet and we'll make decisions on certain things. But I have to give this a context. This is a context in which we have federal public sector workers who are still dealing with Phoenix. That was bad enough. Then they switched providers and we went through Canada Life and they were hit hard. Our members who were looking to have just basic health coverage were impacted. Then it was, we're arbitrarily going to decide you're going to return to office. And then during a statutory freeze, we're going to make it 4 days in office. The trauma and the chaos that federal public sector workers have been through is unbelievable. No other workers has experienced this kind of unease. So for them, it's not even a question of respect. It's about, we're not going to treat you with the dignity that you deserve to be able to live your life and take care of your family or be able to even fulfill what your family wants and needs are. Right now, our members are in survival mode because a lot of them do not have the capacity. They're working multiple jobs. There's a shortage of housing. Our transportation, just look at Ottawa itself. It's a nightmare to get into the city. And then there's an expectation that you're going to be at your desk, but wait, your desk may not be fully set up. You may have pets, we'll call them, running rampage in your office. I know some of our members are even naming them. So if you think about it on an overall basis, it's been a crappy, not just 1 year, not just 2 years. And let's throw in a pandemic while we're at it.
Yeah.
So here they are. And you know what? They held the line. They kept Canada running. They made sure that everyone was taken care of. And at a time where they should be having some stability, they get less than 1%. And that's the slap in the face I talk about. When I'm looking at this, our members are tired. Our members are tired about carrying the brunt of it, to be vilifying because they want a decent wage offer to be able to put food on the table and a roof over their head. And that's the piece that I find. It's almost like this government forgets that they're not expendable. You cannot do anything federally unless you have a strong public service. They are the safety net. And if they choose to cut the safety net, well, guess what? There's going to be a bleed. And every person in Canada is going to be affected. That's just the reality.
That was quite the wholesome answer. You can tell we have an experienced, passionate labor leader at the table. Sharon, that was amazing. Thank you for summing it up. It couldn't have been better said. Okay, to wrap it up, what's next? Julie, we'll go with you, then to Rachel, and we'll finish with Sharon. So what's next for this summer? What should the members do? What's your word of advice?
There's a lot that members can do. I think talking about the bargaining, talking about things like the wage offer and how it affects you, talking to your coworkers, showing up and showing your support, that's what needs to be done. And stay tuned to all the updates that PSAC is putting out. Like, the more you're informed, the better you're going to be prepared for the future. And the more that we have our members behind us, the more the employer sees that, the better position we're going to be in for bargaining. Like, now is the time to really to step up. We've got the employer on notice, more or less, right? So now is the time.
Now, for members, there's some members who are willing to go walk, outside with a sign. Some don't feel comfortable doing that. Some will just like to sign, a letter of support to the bargaining team. So can you give us a different ideas that members can do based on their different comfort levels? Because, you seem quite comfortable, but not everyone's like you.
Yeah, it's all sorts of things. Even just like having a button that says, I support my bargaining team, that you put on your lanyard when you're at work, or using a virtual background that says, I support my bargaining team. All those little teeny tiny actions that you don't think matter, the employer makes note of all of that.
Are you serious? Employer takes note of that?
Oh, yeah. They pay attention.
Wow.
They monitor everything. I know it sounds like Big Brother, but they do. They pay attention. Because if they think members don't care, that's a tool for them. So we need to show them that members care.
Perfect. Thank you. Rachel, as negotiator who sits at the table, and I've seen your eyes roll back into your skull a few times during this process. How do you feel going back? There's mediation coming in September. So what's your outlook for the next few months?
Well, I'm excited to see the mobilization plans that PSAC has over the coming weeks. There's some bargaining town halls that will be happening. So we really hope that people will register, participate, get the information that they need, that they're seeking. There's ways to invite bargaining team members to come to union meetings or different events. All of this is on the PSAC website. As Julie said, there's smaller type actions, wearing buttons, putting up backgrounds on your virtual meetings of I support my bargaining team. You can connect with the PSAC regional offices to get materials. Those are some of the concrete things. The Wearing Black Day of Solidarity starting on July 15th, that's been underway and that will continue over the next couple of months. So those are, a couple of concrete actions that people can take. But depending on how mediation goes, I always try to remain hopeful. I'm a hopeful kind of person, but Treasury Board has a way of killing hope for sure. But depending on how mediation goes, the bargaining teams may determine that, as Sharon said, that we'll need to come to the membership seeking a strike mandate. And if that's what the bargaining teams determine, we really hope to see that support and solidarity from the membership. Our strength lies in the conviction of the members from their strength and their solidarity. And, the truth is, the stronger the strike mandate, the more united the membership is, then the more likely we'll be able to get a deal that
includes a better wage offer, better than 1% per year, right? Now, all the information you said, Rachel, everything's available on PSAC's website. That's a good thing about a democratic institution like a union. Members own their union. They can go, they can read the proposals that PSAC put forward, Treasury Board's proposal. So all this information is available. And something that PSAC did well as well is they created this form. So if you're local, you would like a bargaining team member to come to your meeting and talk. If you want Julie to come and talk to your members, please, there's a form on PSAC's website to put in a request, and they'll gladly work with the local and PSAC's regional office to make sure members can hear directly from their bargaining team. Sharon, since your last intervention, all I've been thinking is, imagine if those workers were non-unionized, how even more Treasury Board would take advantage of them. Like, thankfully, knock on wood, I won't, but thankfully they're unionized, so at least there's some protection in there, or else the employer would just let loose. So what's your final word, Sharon? What's your outlook and your message for your members in the coming months?
I truly believe PSAC members are powerful. I don't think some of them understand how great their power is. This summer, you're going to see MPs at barbecues. They're going to be kissing babies. They're going to be shaking hands, and they're going to be out there. And you have this power to be able to connect with them and have the conversation, because I'll tell you, they gave themselves a 4.5% raise.
4.5?
4.5% raise. And it says a lot. And as far as I'm concerned, our members have the power to go have that conversation. Because guess what? Based on their salary, 4.5% is a lot of money. But based on our members who are CRs and PMs and different classifications, it does not equate to the same amount of money. And so I would say, make sure you become political and have those conversations. Talk to your communities, because at the end of the day, when you have less money in your pocket, that means less buying power in those communities, and rural communities are suffering. I was just in a small community out in Quebec, the bordering between Quebec and Ontario, and I just found out that that community no longer has a corner store in it. And as a result, to do grocery shopping, they have to drive 45 minutes to Pembroke in order to just pick up basic needs. And to me, that's a shame. That tells me that the rural communities are being hit, and we have to recognize that if that's what's going to happen, then we're going to see those communities disappear. So we have a lot of power in our hands right now in the decisions we make. And the biggest decision is, the question is, what would you like to do? Because you have rights and they're protected. Find out more about them on our website. It'll tell you what you can do. You know, you have the right to wear a button. You have the right to put out information about the union. You have the right to take a break and take your lunches. Go talk to your coworkers. At the end of the day, we are not going to give up our rights. And if it means taking legal action to protect them, that's what we're going to do. And they cannot just arbitrarily mandate you 4 days in office. So as far as I'm concerned, the fight has just begun.
Thank you, Sharon. And for our listeners, I know everyone needs to know this is Sharon's third time on our podcast. Every time we extend an invitation to her, she makes the time for us and for her members. So Sharon, a heartfelt thank you to always make it. We know you're busy. We're recording this for our listeners to know 4 p.m. Eastern time on the eve of Canada Day, because that's the slot she was able to secure for us. And we truly appreciate that. So Sharon, thank you. Merci beaucoup. Rachel, thank you. It's your second time on the podcast. It's always a blast to have you here. And Julie, thank you for volunteering to serve as a bargaining team member and getting elected. And thank you and good luck into reaching a fair collective agreement. Merci. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Union Safety Net, Le Filet de Sécurité Syndicale, a union podcast created by USJE for working people. If you have any feedback on today's episode or would like to suggest a topic you want us to cover, please reach out on social media platforms. We love to hear from our listeners. I'm your host, Sébastien Bezot, and I hope you'll join us next month for another episode of the Union Safety Net, Le Filet de Sécurité Syndicale.